Hi, greetings and welcome back. Welcome to my vlog. As I mentioned on my last one, how things basically couldn't get any worse, so they eventually, finally, sort of done me in, and I ended up coming back to Wales, and as I said, finding just a few jobs. Didn't have my heart in fishing, didn't have my heart in a lot of things really, but anyway, it was during the I think 2001, between 2004. As I said, it was a very, it was one of them times in our life. I think a lot of anglers might go through this. They might go through stages where they stop fishing for a little bit, and to get back, it is hard sometimes. But as I said, during those years, 2001, 2004, I occasionally fished some local matches. But finding that I'd lost my enthusiasm, really for serious match fishing, I did try my hand at some commercial fishing, commercial carp fishing. I realised that natural fishing was becoming a thing of the past by then. Because I can remember going back a few years ago, before this of course, trying a couple of commercials up at in the Midlands, and then I could see the writing on the wall that perhaps maybe it's easy, for anglers to just pull up and fish, and you haven't got to perhaps prepare so much that you would with natural fishing. You haven't got to prepare your bait. You can just buy a bag of floating pellets that the fish been weaned on, from babies, and you'll catch them in all sizes, and But anyway, it's not everybody's choice of fishing, although thanks to commercial type of fishing, I suppose it revitalized fishing generally, because as I said, there was a lot of people just didn't just too much hard work, I suppose, going natural fishing. So as I said, it was perhaps the future, but I tell you what I have noticed, which does amaze me, that there are companies now, obviously it's all money orientated, and they're putting prizes up like 50 grand a time, to win some of these commercial matches. Sometimes I feel I was born too young, too early, I should say, with all those sort of competitions going about. Perhaps I should have concentrated on that type of fishing. But as I said, when I won the World Championships, there was no money in it. It was just the glory of being world champion. And, of course, you made it up with sponsorship afterwards. There are some world champions, I don't want to mention, but they know who they are, and they actually managed to make a living out of fishing, using their name and so on. Ian Heaps, for example, he went down to West Wales and built a fishery there, and he's been successful. Bob Nudd, Bob's always been, even today Bob's fishing, but there's some other world champions that just, like Dave Thomas and Roper, they've just, they just faded away. So, I didn't want to be that sort of angler, just fade away. I wanted to really keep going. But anyway, more about that in a minute. Yeah, although, as I said, I enjoyed that little bit of commercial fishing, I suppose, catching, big carp, big weights. But really, the river still held its magic for me, and it was during the season of 2005, in fact. I would fish a match on the River Wye at Belmont, my old haunting grounds, and meeting up with my old friends, Richie Candy, Clive Roberts, Sean Parsons, realising that the bug perhaps was still with me. So I rejoined the Cardiff Nomads. Thought I would try and pick myself up. So as you can imagine, it's like almost 5 years now before I seriously thought, I'd come back and give it a go. Even though I was pretty active, with the competitions at the time, but my friend Clive Roberts, that I mentioned, my old friend from a teenager, and he made a statement to me which gave me really the impetus to regenerate and charge my batteries and start off my career again. And he said, Clive, How many anglers do you know still fishing while in their 70s? You know, and in expectations of health as it diminishes, you know, and I thought about that, and I appreciate what he was trying to say. So then I thought, yeah, before I'm too old. So I made the conscious decision to get back into my match fishing once again. Thanks to Clive Roberts. Yeah, and I've just got to say this, that my old mate Clive Roberts, who in the meantime, he suffered a mini heart attack, and now he's fitted with a pacemaker. Then there's Richie Candy, my other friend, arthritis, you know, having knee problems, you know, having transplants. Sean, who's having a problem with his spine and on medication. Oh my God. Oh, my old mates, they're just, you know, falling one by one. And Rich and Baton. Do you remember Richie I spoke about all those years ago, who was world class as far as I'm concerned? You know, he was struck with throat cancer. Never went fishing again. And Ken Ornsey, who had a life-changing disease. I remember Ken when he was a young lad. Stopped fishing altogether. So I thought, in the grace of God go I, even though I'm not religious, you know, but I am thankful that my health has been pretty good and my faculties are still there, so they say. And my interest and enthusiasm for match fishing soon came back. So that was down to, as I said, my old friend Clive Roberts. Anyway, now it gets a bit interesting, because rejoining my old club, Cardiff Nomads, I was disappointed to hear the club I once knew, that had a very strong membership and boasted to be the premier match club in Wales, had just only a few members left. In addition, to make it worse, they've just lost their fishing rights to Henry Lake, which was a fantastic little match fishing, and that's where we weaned a lot of anglers into match fishing. You know, youngsters that come along, fish the lake, we seen their potential, you know, because Roath Park Lake had died a death many years before, you know, due to effluent going in from the new buildings and new housing estate and all. This just goes to show you the state of the country sometimes, you know. They built this estate, and on the estate, you know, the drainage system was nothing, and basically the plumbers and that were just empty, you know, diverting water into the stream that ran into Roath Park Lake. So Roath Park Lake, one of the better fisheries in the country, roach fisheries, just dwindled and the fish just died. Mind you, cormorants there now, because there was a rooster cormorant used to live up on the islands, but as I say, that didn't help. You know, the Cardiff Nomads, as I said, was a huge club, you know, worldwide, well, countrywide, everybody knew them, but all of a sudden there was just a few left. Now, however, the worst was yet to come. As I said, losing Henry was just as bad, but then there was a new club secretary, a Mr. Robin Darker, from North. He hailed from the northeast of England. Somehow he managed to talk himself into the confidence of the members and take over the club, you know, basically as treasurer, you know, and also I believe maybe captain, I'm not sure. But anyway, the club, as I said, over the many years they've been together, they had accumulated a little bit of money, not a lot, you know, something like about 22 grand, but it disappeared with this new treasurer, Robin Darker. But more about that later, because his connection with the WFCA, Humphreys and Hornblow and some other guy, which I'll mention, yeah, come back to that one. I'll sort that out in a moment. Anyway, as I said, coming back to my fishing, I entered the South of England Pole Championships on the Bristol Avon at Newbridge, and you know what? I won it. Yep, 17-pounder skimmers and roach, and you know, it was a method I learned from a previous outing. Do you remember me telling you about that video I made with international footballer Paul Gascoigne? It was actually we fished the south or the 6th 16th foot drain. That's right. I've got to try and get it right. 16th foot drain in Cambridgeshire. As I said, England's Phil Briscoe from Maver Tackle. He taught me a little method. It was a killing method, in fact. It was shoveling hemp into the swim, and I mean shoveling, with just very little maggot. And how the roach used to respond. And we used to end up catching huge bags of roach. And I thought, that's a great little method, huh? So I thought, thinking, where could I use that back home? So, the Bristol Avon at Newbridge, which tends, to lean itself to that sort of tactic, because it was deep, moving, slow, As I said, and I was fortunate to score a number of times on that venue afterwards. Do you know what? I remember drawing next to a local angler, Martin Barrett from there, and as I say, he drew next to me a few times, and he saw this method, because I was doing okay. He asked me after, about it. So, anyway, I told him what I was doing and learned from it. He's a good angler. He's a good angler anyway, but yeah, he did learn very quickly. Apparently, he went on himself and used the same method to win the local league that year. I never really capitalised on going back, to the, using that method that many times, but I wish I had. But as I say, he went on and won the league, and I think he won it the following year. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about it, about that method now. Yeah, so this method, right, it was something, because when you fish hemp fishing, you always imagine little and often, don't you, little bits, you catch, and you catch on as the fish are taking them, on very sparingly. But this, completely different. I would take at least half a gallon of hemp, at least 4 pints, and then basically, you would shovel it in. And when I say shovel in, you put a double pouch in, and you only have 3 or 4 maggots. And the idea was that as the hemp sort of rained down through the water, the fish would get so confused, because instead of just the one grain coming through, 1 or 2 grains, there'd be so many, they would just, they would turn into like a feeding frenzy. And what they do, they pick out the maggots in between. And it was a brilliant method, as I said. I still use it today. I'll let that my secrets out, but anyway, that was a great little method. And I tell you what, it worked very well on the Huntsbill. Now, the Huntsbill, I remember using it then. I come second in the Huntsbill Championships, fishing a waggler, which, as I said, by then, of course, the Huntsbill, the big bream weights had gone, and more fish were being caught, sort of on the pole and on the waggler. So, so I ended up second in the Huntsbill Championships. Now, the thing is with Huntsbill, it's only shallow. It's only, maybe 3, 4, 5 foot. But still, I was piling in that hemp and that little trickle of maggots, and it worked, And I've done well on there since. I fished a few summer leagues on there, super leagues, and I've won my section most times. It's a great little method. Anyway, it didn't work on other venues. Mine didn't work on the Welsh Raven, because I've gone back to the Evesham and places, and it don't seem to respond, as I say. But I still carry plenty of hemp with me, and as you know, you can freeze hemp up, so if you don't use any, you can take it back and freeze it up afterwards. Anyway, but as I said, during my comeback, I gradually started to get back to my winning ways. And as I said, I was often in the frame, and as I say, I like to pride myself that out of 10 matches, I'm in the frame 7 of them. So, as I say, I hadn't lost it, but it did take me a little while to get back. That's all. Anyway, I still kept track, an interest on the international events, and as I mentioned before, Eric and his, Welsh setup. I was told by a few people that it was a bit of a closed shop. Not many anglers could get in there into his squad anymore, because unless they were, a yes man to him. and there was more from the north and the south. There was but don't get me wrong. I mean, the anglers, I suppose, were half decent, although their records didn't prove anything over 20 odd years. Eric never won a sausage, not a sausage. But there was a young budding angler from South Wales, a chap named Lee Edwards, and Lee broke the mould a little bit because he actually came third in the World Championships in 2007. So that was fantastic, for him. As I said, it was the first medal that Wales won in 18 years. That's right, 18 years. And as I said, he did manage to get that. Well, I suppose it's at the end of the day, it's law of averages. It's, they're going to do something. But anyway, Lee Edwards, as I say, he managed it, and Eric's still in charge. However, I was talking to Lee, and he did say that possibly he could have had a gold medal if Eric, had kept in touch with him when he was running the match, because he was telling me Eric didn't have a clue when he was running the bank, and he gave no guidance or support in helping him, But as I say, something never changes, so it appears. Anyway, as I said, Eric was holding on to the manager's job, and after all those fruitless years, while reaping the rewards of the job, one member of the Welsh team was telling me, how Eric invited the whole of his family to one of the World Championships events, only to write out a federation cheque for the meals afterwards. I wondered, how did he manage that? Where's the money coming from? The Welsh funds. As I say, the WFCA, the Welsh Federation of Course Anglers, were now all under, his control, with a certain Mr. Hornblow. And the other thing was, it was also a known fact that the Welsh team sponsor, Shimano Tackle, company who supplied Eric with a lot of the rods and reels and clothing, which was meant to be distributed to the squad afterwards, didn't find their way. In fact, a couple of the disgruntled team members tried in vain to dislodge Eric from his job. I even tried to apply myself for the job, but was met with resistance. And the quango of the federation saying I would need a coaching badge. And this was, this was a rule that they brought in, obviously to stop myself from getting, from becoming a manager of the Welsh team. As I say, the plot thickens. Yeah, because at the time, I felt the Welsh match angling was in a crisis, and in particular the international team, because they were a laughing stock, really. When I travelled, and I started travelling the open match scene, they said, what's happened to Wales? How come? What's happened to them? And after all those glorious years that I spent with Wales, we were always in the frame, picking up medals. Anyway, yeah, as I said, it would take someone with a real pair of balls to dislodge Eric, from the team. That was the only way they're going to be successful again. But unfortunately, Eric held on to power within the Welsh setup, and it was only going to be a matter of time before things would catch up. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, rejoining the Cardiff Nomads late in 2007, I was disappointed to hear the club had, as I said, lost their fishing rights to Hendra. And this new chairman, Mr. Darker, somehow managed to lose 22,000. Now, Robin Darker is also a very good talker. He talked himself into the Welsh Federation of Anglers. Yeah, and he became their secretary. Now, I didn't realise, but he did have a dark past, as it turned out. Only a couple of years before, he took another Welsh fishing club to the cleaners, but was never found out until later. Now, Mr. Darker, being a clever con man, also somehow managed to talk himself into this prime position. As I say, And he also talked himself into a prime position with the Angling Trust. Yeah. As a coaching development manager, working with the Angling Development Board. And it was during that time the net started to close around Mr. Darker, as I instigated an investigation into our club lost funds. Come back on the next vlog and I'll tell you more about it.